Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. It's on to the penultimate episode of Season 6. This one is called Field Trip. Ryan?
Yeah, it's an episode that I can't say I've revisited all that much. My memories going into it were that it was. I seemed to remember that. And bear in mind, obviously, I've seen it since. We're about to discuss it, but I'm talking purely before we came back to it. My memories were that it was quite a predictable episode. It was in the vein of like Darkness Falls type environmental type episode, and I wasn't overly keen on it. But yeah, we've had a few this year. Like
Mm-hmm.
Milagro was one where I was just I was like there, but then I came to it. I was like, hey, that was actually a pretty decent episode. So yeah, where do you think the IMDb X-Files fans rank this amongst the 217 episodes?
I think this is a firm favourite.
Do you?
Yeah,
Do you think this is a firm favourite?
yeah.
That's interesting. That's
I think it is
interesting.
because it's Mulder Scully. It's weird situations. It's kind of nightmarish. 19.
Wow. Okay, you thought that firm. No, it's 35.
Right. Okay.
It's 35. Now, given that the Unnatural, which we did week before last, was 52. Was 52. And I thought, personally, I thought The Unnatural was a 5-star episode. I thought it had two of the greatest Mulder Scully moments ever. I thought that would be a fan favourite, to be honest, a firm fan favourite. That got 52. This is at 35. So you are right. You are correct in the sense that this does seem to be a firm fan favourite. Let's get into it, though. Okay, so we open up on a couple coming back to a log cabin after a hike. The woman is not enjoying the headache that she has, so she goes for a shower. And in the shower, she starts to see visions. She sees like yellow goo everywhere. She sees things starting to like kind of dissolve before her
Yep.
very eyes. And then we see a flash of her in this goo, kind of screaming, which is quite sends a bit of a shiver down the
Mm-hmm.
spine. Got to be said, just because it's like inserted. It's a bit of a jump scare kind of thing, but a jump scare done in the right way, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then we snuggle up in bed with this couple. We snuggle up in bed with this couple. And as the camera kind of pulls away from them, all snuggled up in bed, we do like a jump cut kind of thing to two skeletons out in a field somewhere in the same position. The
Yeah.
implication, obviously, being that this is them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But now,
Yeah. When you go.
it is very apparent right from the get-go, immediately, what is going on. Is my
No.
problem. No,
No.
no, you don't think. See, this was always my problem with this episode, and I'm just like, it kicks off, and I feel like we are literally spoon-fed exactly what is happening.
I think on hindsight, you could definitely, but at this moment watching it, like I didn't know what was happening.
Wow. Okay. So I've always had this problem with this episode. Right from the first time I watched it, it seemed quite clear to me that clearly the stuff that she's seeing isn't real, and she appears to be buried underground somewhere with like goo on her, and then the next thing we see that they're dead. To me, that just I don't know why my brain pieces that together, but like when we get to the end of the episode and we're told exactly what's going on, that's exactly where I expected it to end up, and that's why this episode is always like it's just never quite clicked with me the way it seems to for all these people who put it at 35. Okay.
I like the opening because it's one of those openings. It's for me was a WTF. Like, what's going on? Like, what is like? Because you see them coming home. It's the mundanities that I get lost in because they're throwing their keys down, they're getting undressed. It's meandering conversations about nothingness. When she starts suffering these headaches and seeing these visions, which I didn't know what was going on, and then the transition from the bed to the bones left me going, I want to know what's going on. I have no idea. For when I watched this opening, I took that everything in the apartment was real.
Right.
And I did not, like, I had no idea what was coming in. Yeah.
Okay. It's just, I think it's just one of those instances that for whatever reason, my brain was in the right place for it to click when I saw it, and ever since I've just never been able to I've never been able to come at it with this sense of surprise and shock.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, so Mulder fills Scully in on Angela and Wallace, who had been missing for 3 days. Obviously, so they've gone from fully functioning, walking about human beings to skeletons in 3 days. Scully says it's a ritualistic homicide. Mulder says brown mountain lights. Gets real pissy when Scully scoffs at UFOs. And then I love how she says something, and then he goes, well, sounds like crap when you say it.
Yeah. But this is a throwback to, and I forget the name of the episode, the one with the vampire trailer park town people. What was that?
Oh yeah, Bad Blood.
Bad Blood, where we get the 2 points of view.
Yeah.
Because all the way through this episode, it doesn't, like, we're jumping between the hallucinogenic moments of Mulder, we're jumping between them of Scully, but it jumps back and forward, and it's those attributes that they take of each other which kind of perpetrate that fantasy moment, which I think is really good. And it's because it's kind of like a meta nature at the start of this one, where they're like, where's the UFOs, where's the Bigfoot? Like, you always come out with some wacky understanding. And I kind of like that back and forth at the start. Like, so is this part fantasy or reality?
No, this is reality. This bit. This is clearly reality because they've not gone to the field yet. This is the bit that's got them onto the investigation. So I don't think there's anything fantasy about this. We don't get into fantasy until we hit that mushroom.
Okay.
So Mulder runs over a mushroom, and then boom, that's it. That's when he steps into Fantasyland, and then when Scully steps on the mushroom, that's when she steps into Fantasyland. So, okay. Scully checks the bones, and the dental records match. She finds the swamp goo, or bog sludge, as the pathologist calls it. But Scully doesn't look convinced, so because she finds it's like, what's this yellow stuff? And he's like, it's just bog sludge. And she just doesn't look convinced at all. Mulder goes to the site and does that thing that we hate, where he sticks his finger in the goo and sniffs it. But so when he gets there, and this was another thing that really clued me in. When he gets there, they make a point of showing us the fact that Mulder runs over this mushroom. Like, the car pulls up, hits a mushroom. We see all these spores flying into the air. And like, if I had any doubts at the beginning as to what was going on, like I had a sense of what was going on during the opening scene. But if I had any doubts, those doubts were quashed as soon as I see them hitting this mushroom. Because if you put something on film, there is a reason you've put it there. And we see Mulder hitting this mushroom and all the kind of stuff going into the air. It's like, by that point, it is very clear to me that, okay, magic mushrooms or something in that vein, the spores from that mushroom are going to cause hallucinogenics. So, yeah.
So the knowing where this episode goes takes away the enjoyment for you.
It takes out any tension. All the tension is gone. Like, there's moments where they're designed to inspire tension. What is it? What's the word? They're meant to make us tense because it's like, what's going on? What's going to happen? But I'm just, the whole time, I'm like, this is all in your head. You just need to wake up.
So any other X-Files episodes that rely on building of tension, which is an episode you've already seen, should take away the tension of that episode because you know what's going to happen. So when you rewatch those episodes, you find that they don't work because you know. No,
don't work like that because
you're not, you don't go through the same tension the second time when you know exactly what's going to happen.
No, because I find like Pusher, for example. I've seen Pusher so many times. I know exactly what's going to happen, and yet during the Russian roulette scene, I still get tense, and it's a lot. It's that there's so many things that go in to building tension, and one of them is like the way that it's shot, the way that the story unfolds, and I feel like if you can draw me into the characters before we call out kind of the elephants in the room, like the elephant in the room here is the fact that that they're hallucinating, they're stuck underground. And because it's called out for me so early on and stamped several times, because it's not just this bit where we see Mulder hitting a mushroom, we see the exact same thing with Scully when she walks over a mushroom. So it's like the episode is constantly telling us what's happening. So for me, I'm not given chance to get caught up in the character arcs in the stories because the episode's always calling out the fact that, hey, this is what's happening. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this is a terrible episode, and we'll get to our scores and everything at the end. It's just that for me is a big crux of why it isn't quite as perfect as a lot of people seem to make out. And I don't know why some episodes I can watch after all these years and still feel a tension, Pusher being a perfect example, and yet this one, not so much. I can only assume it's because right from the get-go they're calling out exactly what's going on. I don't know.
I think there's more things in the episode that are fun other than just building of tension.
Yeah, there is, and that's why I say, like I said, I'm not saying this is a trash episode. There are things in it I like. There's a lot of things in it I like. It's just when we go back to that ranking at the start, 35 out of 217 episodes, and yet The Unnatural was at 52. I personally think The Unnatural does a heck of a lot better job setting out its stall and telling us a story that I'm engaged with and all that kind of stuff. But that's just me personally. Clearly, I'm in the minority. If that IMDb score is to go, is to be, yeah. But okay, so Mulder goes to the site, sniffs the goo, which we all love when he does that. At least he doesn't taste it this time.
That's a shame. We're just missing that little touch.
Then he sees Wallace alive and kicking, running about like he's got no care in the world. He chases him to a cave. So, obviously
Yeah,
that.
I had no idea what the hell was going on here. I was like, wow,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
crazy.
And I'm just thinking Mulder's visions have already kicked in. Okay, so the pathologist comes back with the bog sludge test results, and it turns out that, see, again, and this, like, if we don't know what's going on by this point, then there's something wrong with our detective skills. The pathologist comes back and says that the bog sludge is actually a plant-based digestive enzyme. Okay, so plants are eating them. Oh, these people have been eaten by plants. They're seeing visions. So to me, that just spells it out. What it does is it nullifies them by giving them visions, and then while they're in their little vision quest, it eats them alive. Basically, that's I get all that from all the information they've given us. It seems pretty self-apparent, but
And that completely tears down the episode for you because you know where it's going to go. You just find it like it's like, what's the point?
yeah,
Almost.
I think see that's the key. Like even episodes that I've seen before where I know they're gonna go, the narrative gives you the information at more relevant times. You know what I mean? Like it gives, like I can watch them again and still feel something approximating surprise because of the way the information's laid out. Like it's given me at the time that I need it, not before. If that makes sense. I feel
But
like all.
but this sequence here when they mention the digestive, like that shouldn't really matter to you because you've already figured it out within the first 2 minutes. So like,
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm just watching scenes that are telling me stuff I already know.
yeah, but other people don't know that, so they've got to kind of get the narrative in there at some point. But since you already know it at 2 minute mark, then any time after that doesn't matter when it comes because you already know.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't matter when that information comes, but it needs to come at some point.
Yeah. It does. It does. Just like there's a couple of fixes, right? There's a couple of fixes they could have done. Like in the opening sequence, the part that really kind of ruined that scene in a way was the, you know, when it jumps to her being covered in the slime and screaming. There's that little jump cut where it that's what really clued me in to what was going on there, because it told us that she's not really where we're seeing her right now. She's actually somewhere else. So something's happening to her and everything around her isn't real. If you remove that one little jump cut scene, that adds a bit more mystery to that sequence. Second thing is the first mushroom that we see Mulder hit. Get rid of that. So bring it later. So we only see the one that Scully takes down. But the fact that we see it happen twice, we see Mulder hit a mushroom with the car, then we see Scully hit the mushroom with a foot. It's just really calling it out. Like if we see Scully later on hitting a mushroom, then we can assume that Mulder did the same thing at some point. So you know what I mean? It's just there's a few little things that they could take out that doesn't hammer it home so much. But you know, whatever. And then this thing with the digestive enzymes, I think that could have come later. Like maybe even don't give that information to Scully, but because Scully has asked for those tests to be done.
Well, I think the problem is like after this moment, Scully then enters the world of fantasy. So
yeah,
it needs to come before she.
No, it doesn't, because what you could do instead is she goes off, gets caught up in the fantasy, and then them test results come back, and the pathologist, you know, has given them to the FBI, and that's why the FBI turn up at the. I mean, I know the FBI turn up at the end because of stuff that Scully's asked for to be tested anyway, but it could be kind of wrapped up in that. So that explanation come a bit later, so we still don't quite know what's going on, but.
So when Scully goes into the fantasy world with Mulder in there, do we go to the real world at any point?
No.
So it would be weird to instigate that sequence into what is essentially fantasy, because it
No,
would seem
because
like
you could still have the pathologist stuff taking place in the real world. Well, as long as so any scene that wouldn't have Mulder and Scully in it would be the real world, but any scene that did have Mulder and Scully in it, we would know would be the fantasy. So
yeah. But then you'd have to add multiple sequences, because if you just have one that seems odd, you'd have to have a whole different dynamic and add in more things.
Yeah. I just think there's ways around it. I just think there's so much signposting, and that kind of sucks out the energy for me. But okay, so the pathologist comes back with the bog sludge. Yeah, we've done that. Then Mulder enters the cave. It's it's just a transitionary scene. The pathologist gives Scully files on the other similar remains that were found in that area. Scully asks for him to send sludge to the FBI for complete analysis before asking to borrow his truck. So her having that sludge be sent off. I think personally, you could skip the pathologist telling her that it's a digestive enzyme, and just like they don't quite know what it is. It's like I've had a look at it. It's definitely not bog sludge, but I'm not quite sure what it is. Scully then says, "Okay, send it off to the FBI for complete testing," and then boom, she goes off. She looks for Mulder, gets caught up all in it, and then when they're rescued at the end, you have Skinner saying that stuff you had sent to the FBI. It turns out it was this, and that's what brought us out here, essentially looking for you. So that way we're not told until right at the end what's going on, so to speak. But yeah, I don't know. So Mulder finds Wallace in the cave, who says that the remains they found are fake. He says he and Angela were taken and experimented on. And first of all, overact much? This guy is like just proper overacts. It's like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? And it's, calm down a bit, mate. Calm down. But this guy is telling Mulder everything he wants to hear.
Yeah, I kind of like. I like that, because normally, like, sometimes the alien stuff can be a bit wacky, but I was like, holy crap, they're just throwing us in, and just because at this point I still don't know what's going on. So I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? This is just so weird. In a kind of fun way.
Yeah, I just love how like Mulder. Obviously, he's had that scene with Scully where he's like, I think I deserve some slack. The amount of times that I've been right, like 99.9% of the time, whatever. I think I just deserve a little bit more faith, Scully, like that kind of thing. And then the moment he's down here, he's having these visions where everything that like he wishes Scully would tell him, he's suddenly being told. All the truth is just like, everything he believes in is all the nails being hit on the head, like. So yeah. Scully arrives and steps on a mushroom. So again, they make a point of showing us her foot hitting this mushroom and a cloud of smoke erupting from it. So Mulder tries to get Wallace to leave. Then a bright light appears.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks like there's aliens on the outside of this cave, but we actually cut to Scully on the outside of the cave, shining a torch inside. Yeah.
Which I really like that kind of idea.
Like, yeah, it's like a nice little cut kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much from Scully in the sort of autopsy place to Mulder here. Like it moves really quickly. It's like a lot of cutting between these two sequences. Like it's jumping back and forth. I noticed that a lot. I think you notice these things more when you're writing notes.
Yeah,
because
you end up writing a note where you're not actually writing a right lot, but then you're writing the next scene. Yeah.
And you just think, it's like, wow, this is really like quite quick here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Scully looks for Mulder, doesn't find him, and then walks away from the cave, which is supposed to make us go, "Oh no, Scully, he's in there! Check again." So Mulder and Wallace hide until the light disappears. They find Angela. Wallace gets some water off the cave wall, or at least it looks like water, but then we see it from a different angle, and it's actually the yellow goo. Angela tells them what happened. Mulder finds the chip scar on the back of her neck, and then Mulder says they're on. Sorry, Mulder says they're textbook abductees, except for the fact of the skeletons that were found. Wallace insists they have something to do with them not wanting to be found. And then Mulder goes into the light, which once again reappears at the caves. It's like the moment like they start getting into any kind of conversation about the truth, the light always appears as if it to be a distraction, but the kind of distraction that isn't going to let him walk out of the cave. And it's like, it's this, it's quite clever kind of thing of like, I'm going to keep you here, but distract you. So you can't ask too many questions. But...
And it's seen that weird, like, you get to see that obsession in Mulder where he's just like, okay, I'm going towards that weird light, where the natural response is I'm hiding from anything.
Yeah. It's like Mulder's the one person that this isn't going to work on. It's I mean, it's again, it's just these two people, like they're showing us everything we know about abductees based on what we've seen in the X-Files so far, So Scully goes to Mulder's apartment, where he waits with Angela and Wallace. So, he last saw him walking into the light, and the next thing he's just randomly at his apartment with Angela and Wallace.
So jarring. Yep.
And Alien Grey. This kind of reminded me of The Unnatural as well, in the sense, like, you remember, like, when we saw The Unnatural and like what's his face goes into the other room and he's just there as an alien grey, and you were like, it's just weird seeing him out in the daylight. So
this, I've got to say, this was probably my favourite part of the episode. I thought this was hilarious, Brian. And it's not it's not what we see, it's just the idea of Mulder just like, haha, I abducted one. Like he's so like this is his fantasy, not like he solved a big mystery, just like he abducted one of them that's abducting everybody else. Just like, I got one.
And it's this little small thing that it looks like an alien grey child, and you can just see Mulder kind of running off with it under his arm, like.
That's what's so funny, the fact that you can just picture this so clearly.
Oh man. Okay. So but it's in this moment that Scully tells Mulder everything he's ever wanted to hear from her.
Yeah.
Like he practically so it's basically like the thing, the setup scene we had with them at the beginning where Mulder's like, I think you owe me at least some, respect, like for this and this and all that. And then now she's giving it him, like just point blank. She's like, you were right, Mulder. You were right about everything, about the aliens, about the abductions, and she's just like literally the biggest ego stroke Mulder could ever hope to get from her, and she's just laying it all out on a plate. So right off, something's fishy.
Yeah.
Mulder can't believe that she's buying it. So this is the thing. It's like, because Mulder expects her to rationalize her way out of it, it's like when she does start to stroke his ego, telling him everything that he wants to know, he can't buy it. He's just like, nah, this ain't right. So he goes to the bathroom to freshen up and sees goo coming out of the taps.
Mm-hmm.
He heads back to Scully and says nothing adds up. Then he sees everything melt away. We then see him covered in goo inside the cave underground. So you have to know what's going on at this point, surely.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty much spelled it out there. Right. Okay. So Scully comes back with a pathologist to find Mulder. What they find is another skeleton.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is fantasy world, because
this is Scully's nightmare.
Yeah, this is Scully's nightmare because
the obsession has killed him.
Yeah. So Scully, this stuff I like, okay, because what it's doing is it's and the scene previously as well, like, you know, when Mulder brings out the little alien grey, and then Scully tells him everything that he wants to hear. I like all this stuff because it's given us a bit of an insight into their heads, like what their fears are, what their desires are, you know, what they want from each other but never actually quite get, and if they did get, they wouldn't trust it, because it's like that. It's a dichotomy of like what we want from people, and yet if we got it, we wouldn't trust it if we did get it, because we know that person so well, and it's an interesting dichotomy, I think, which is kind of explored through these moments. So Scully comes back with a pathologist to find Mulder, but finds a skeleton. Then she checks the dental records, which show that it is indeed Mulder. But there's no sign on the remains of the goo. Again, though, like, you know, because we know what's going on, like we know that that's not Mulder. It's like, so I don't ever really feel what Scully feels in the set. Like, I don't, you know, we're supposed to feel this weight that Scully feels because she's found the remains of her partner, and I don't feel that. Whereas, again, just to use Pusher as an example, the reason I think that the tension remains in the Russian roulette scene is because Mulder and Scully are both present, and we know that this is a reality that they are both present in, not some fantasy world. So because it's happening in real time, the tension just remains with that scene. For me,
I don't see it as this sadness and loss. I see this whole sequence, and I quite like it because it's like a kind of nightmare sequence where it's the lack of understanding. She's like, it's almost disbelief. Like, why did this happen? How did that happen? Why is nobody like acting the right way? I think it's quite a good sequence. It kind of epitomizes loss almost, because there is that, like, everything's changed, but all these people seem to be acting the same. Nobody seems to be questioning anything. I don't understand what's going on. Like, I like.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that sense comes a little bit later with Skinner's reaction, and then the lone gunman's reaction. I don't really get that sense with this particular scene, where it's just because the pathologist didn't know Mulder, so he's not going to give two tosses.
Yeah, and we should mention as well that the pathologist is Bobby Singer from Supernatural.
Oh, really? Okay. It's been so long since I've seen Supernatural. I just didn't make that.
It took me it took me like half the episode. Because this is where my note kicks in. I'm just like,
right
now I've got it. You know, that way you're just like, I know him. Okay.
Okay. So, the pathologist says the best theory of what happened is the exact one that Scully came up with at the start about the ritualistic killer, and he even uses her words, like word for word, her theory, again, telling her exactly what he thinks she wants to hear. But
which I love that, because it's a kind of deja vu feeling or look that she has.
So Skinner suggests Scully take some time off. She doubts the conclusions of the case, but Skinner tries to reassure her. She questions how many times her reports have actually helped to solve cases, and Skinner promises to get the bastard who did this, which Mitch Pileggi just loves those kind of lines, doesn't he, where he gets to say, that son of a bitch, or that bastard. You can tell that he relishes delivering those lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, the key moment in this for me is literally that moment of self-doubt, that self-reflection in Scully when she's like, you know what? How often have my case notes, results, findings, whatever, actually helped solve these cases? And it kind of feeds back to what Mulder was saying at the start, where he's like, you know, I'm right in like 98.9% of the time, whatever. And I think here she's kind of feeding into that by saying, like, you know what? Yeah, maybe he is. Like how often do I actually solve cases with these notes and stuff? So, but which I think is a little unfair on her. I think there's been multiple times she's solved cases and even saved their lives. Like, it's her notes that saved them in Dodd Calm. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
A classic episode. But yeah, okay. So Scully goes to Mulder's wake, and the lone gunmen and Skinner are there. Lone gunmen act like her report was spot on, every detail.
Yeah.
And Scully blows up at them and Skinner. Then there's a knock at the door, and Mulder comes in. Everyone else is suddenly gone. So yeah, it's just, it's funny seeing the lone gunmen kind of toe the party line and just like, yeah, your notes are spot on. And Byers is like, yeah, it sounds to us like it was a ritualistic killing with such and such overtones. And he's like, whoa, okay. It's like throwing her words at her once again.
Personally, I just love Langley's wake clothes.
Yeah.
You know,
the tuxedo, the painted on tuxedo kind of deal. Yeah, it's like just because you could not bring yourself to actually wear a genuine tuxedo, so you had to go down the silly route. But yeah, that's Langley all over. So Mulder says that he was abducted, then brought back from North Carolina to his door. So he says he's abducted and stuff, and Scully, like, obviously rationalizing it. It's like, so what, you were abducted and then they just brought you back to your door? And then he's like, huh.
Alien Uber.
Yeah. So why did you knock on your own door as well? So it's like, so all these things, like, what are you doing, Mulder? It's your apartment. You didn't need to knock. You could have just come straight in. So she tries to convince him that they are hallucinating. She succeeds, and they dig their way out of the ground. Ta-da! Victory. Episode over. Da-da-da. Debrief. Just have the debrief. The usual debrief scene with Skinner, where Mulder becomes convinced that they never actually got out. Why don't they have any burns? How did they just snap out of the effects of the drug? He shoots Skinner to prove it, and then they melt away. And then we go. This is an issue for me, is that because Mulder asks, how did we just snap out of it? Like, when, like, name one drug that people are able to just, once they realise they've been drugged, they're able to snap out of the effects of it. Well, it doesn't exist, because that's just not the way drugs work. Which, and that's good. That shows us why they're still in there. But then because of that, they snap out of it and dig their way out, which kind of contradicts that very question that he's just asked. It also implies the possibility that they may never have actually got out and that they're still in there.
Yeah, I can, because I mean they're drugged, so they're not understanding properly what's going on. But there's got to be a moment of lucidity where you kind of realize your situation, which I think this is what this is. It's a moment of clarity. Like, and he doesn't manage to really escape. He manages to get a hand out, and that's pretty much all he's ever going to do.
That's what saved him, because obviously the FBI are looking for them at that point, and they see the hand, and then boom, they can dig them out. But it is that, I think it is that sense that obviously the episode is trying to make out that Mulder and Scully know each other so well, and because of their strengths, their, like Mulder's desire to always look for the truth wherever it leads him and things like that. It's that kind of gives them an edge that perhaps people like Angela and Wallace don't have. So yeah, but there you go. So he and Scully wake up underground. Hand punches through the soil, and the search party finds them, loads them onto an ambulance, and as the ambulance drives away, they reach out their hands to each other and hold hands. And that is the end of that episode. Wrap up.
Hey, I'll let you wrap up, Brian.
So I like this episode. It's good. There's zero mystery in it for me, obviously, as I've explained. I think if they'd have been able to lay this out in a way that kept the mystery right up until, like, at least the final act, then I think this would be a 4 out of 5 for me. But because of that, I never feel any tension. I never feel any mystery. I know exactly what's going on right from the start, and that's not just on rewatch. That's just the way it's always been. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. I think it's solid. I think it's a very good idea. Maybe not executed in the best possible way, but I do like the stuff between Mulder and Scully. I like the insight that it gives us into how Mulder and Scully think, not just about themselves, but about each other. So there is some good stuff in here. So yeah, 3 out of 5 for me.
I quite liked Field Trip. I thought it was a kind of fun episode. For me, it's not so much about the why. It's just I kind of like the journey, especially when it gets to the more twisted, nightmarish elements later on, and it kind of has these weird jumps. I like things that don't make sense, like at certain moments when they're just jumping from one sequence to another with no connectivity, and it's just weird and strange, and it just kind of speaks to me. I kind of like, and this is one of the episodes it takes Mulder and Scully apart for a good chunk of the episode as well. But I don't feel that really is detrimental to it. And I love the repetition. Like there's something about that repetition that comes throughout it, whether it be the language, like the ritualistic killings that keep coming up, like that, but always spoken by a different person, which I think is really playful. For me, I think I'm going to give Field Trip 4.5.
4.5.
Yeah.
Wow.
Close to being a 5, and contention for top 5 of the season.
You have to throw some of your scores back in your face, but we all know that's never really mattered. I know you'll be putting this above an episode that you gave 5 stars when it comes to doing your top 5.
Yeah. I mean, partially because that's just how I feel when I make my list, and partially because I love your reaction when I do that.
Yeah, just irritating.
Does not compute.
Yeah, pretty much.
I also like the title of this one, considering they're tripping in a field.
Yeah. I just like when I see that title, Field Trip, I always at first I think it's the episode Detour, where they are essentially going on a field trip, because they're out on like an FBI field trip weekend thing, aren't they? But then they kind of get lost. 2 cohorts
type thing.
Yeah. But I prefer Detour to this episode, definitely. But it's still good. It's not a bad episode, but yeah.
So next week we are on to the season finale, Biogenesis. Now, is this like one of the great finales in the seasons, or is that that's fine?
But this could go either way. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I think I remember my reaction. I think. Let me rephrase that. I think my reaction to it stems more from the 2 parts that come after that kick off season 7. than the episode itself. Like I feel like it's one of those episodes that leaves you going, oh, this is going some interesting places. But then because I've seen the two parts that come after, I'm like,
no, it doesn't.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you make of it, and to see what kind of questions it raises, and it has the potential for going down a road that could piss off a lot of religious folk, could step into territory that some would deem blasphemous. It starts to get murky, is all I'm saying. This is where the mythology side of things starts to get murky. And I think I've alluded to that before, that once we get to the end of season 6 and then into season 8, that's when the mythology starts going, okay, maybe we should have wrapped this up a bit sooner, guys. But yeah. Okay.
And I mean, it feels like we've zipped through this season. We're almost at the end already, and I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
And
I sometimes think that. I sometimes think we're starting to see the finish line, but then when I put it into context, we've still got season 7, season 8, season 9, season 10, season 11.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, season 10 and 11, like put together, don't even make up a full season by normal season standards, but we do essentially have 4 seasons left, so
which is a good couple of years to go.
Yeah. And by that point, the new not Michael Jordan, what's his face, the new X-Files should be out by then anyway. So, and I'm sure we'll be itching to dive into that.
Jordan Peele?
No, not Jordan Peele. Guy who did the Michael B. Jordan stuff. Creed, he did Creed and Fruitvale Station, Black Panther. Ryan Coogler, that's the one. Yeah. So I've liked his film work. So I want to give it the benefit of the doubt. Just so far, things I've heard just make me think it's going to be a DEI kind of love fest. I want story to take precedence. That's the thing. Story first, please, before we get into all the DEI nonsense.
Straight after social context, you'll get some story. So we will see you next week when we're talking about the season finale of season 6, which I'm looking forward to. It's always a good moment. Then we can start to build our top 5 lists from there, which will be always exciting. So if you don't mind, why don't you give us a like or review on YouTube or whichever podcast service you're listening to us on. We would really appreciate that, allowing other people to discover us so far. And remember, we've done almost 6 seasons of this, so there's plenty of episodes to listen to, or go back and listen to them again. And we'll see you next week for X-Files Revisited.